You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Love espresso, drip coffee, and cold brew? With the Ninja Luxe Cafe, if you can crave it, you can brew it. Espresso? Balanced. Drip coffee? Rich. Cold brew in a flash. With Barista Assist technology, you brew with no stress and no guesswork and make perfect silky microfoam hands-free from dairy or plant-based milks. Shop the Ninja Luxe Cafe at ninjakitchen.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This week, I am talking to my new buddy, Matt Parker. Matt Parker is a bassist, a creator, an all-around good dude, and maybe the internet's leading bass 6 enthusiast. Quite possibly. We talk a lot about that particular instrument on this episode, and he definitely caused it to climb the gear acquisition charts for me. That's it. I need a bass 6. It's stupid that I don't have one. I've always wanted one. It's time to get one, and it is fully Matt's fault. We get into that and his story on this episode, and it is a really good one. I think you're going to very much enjoy it. But I have to give you a quick note on this one. I've been fortunate to have pretty smooth sailing for a while. The quality has been pretty good, and there hasn't been too bad of connection issues in a long time. However, that was not the case for Matt and I. We ran into some pretty gnarly connection issues, lots of dropouts, and things like that. But the main bulk of the episode went really, really smooth. However, there was a weird interference in this one that we could not isolate, and the options were completely abandon ship and try to do it a different time and hope for the best, or forge ahead and try to clean it up as best as we can in post. So we chose option 2. So if things sound a little bit different than what you're used to, that is why. Just wanted to give you a little heads up before you dove in and wondered what was going on there. But it is far from unlistenable. It is not a problem at all for me. It's just a little different than what you've come to expect on this podcast. All right, that's probably a good enough heads up. Let's get into this rather fun episode with Matt Parker. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today I have Matt Parker, bassist extraordinaire. How's it going, dude?
Very well, sir. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry it's been a bit of a issue with the sound quality ahead of time, but I've just had a house move, so everything's kind of a bit jumbly at the moment, and everything's kind of in boxes, and yeah, it's been a bit rough.
Yeah, well, we'll see through the power of isotope what we can do with it, but hopefully it's it'll be okay for most people. Yeah, I think. Absolutely. If not, like I said, we'll call it the lo-fi version and we'll just roll with it. It'll be fine.
We'll become SoundCloud famous. We'll just roll it out as like a really stripped back EP, and people will love it.
Yeah, is that a thing anymore? Do people get SoundCloud famous?
I don't know. I'm showing my
thing?
age now, aren't I? I think I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. We were talking about SoundCloud rappers, and we were just like, "Yeah, I'm a kid."
I'm with it, fellow kids. How are you doing?
Yeah, I had a skateboard on my back. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I was at the gym the other day, and I was looking around, we're getting ready to leave, and I was like, "Oh, it's happened. I'm the old man in the gym. I never thought I'd see the day, but I am officially the old man." It was a weird realization.
It's super humbling, isn't it? So I depped for a band a couple of years ago, and then they asked me to join this year as like the full-time bass player. Mm-hmm. And I realized I'm the oldest in the band now. And every other band I've ever played in, I've been the youngest. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happened. Like, I'm the old man who shouts at clouds. Like, I'm like, turn the master down. It's too loud.
Man, I don't want to go. I got to play last. Come on. What do you mean we're headlining? We're supposed to open so I can go
I'm not
home.
bringing a cab anymore. My back hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right? That's what happens.
It.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bass player, so no one hears me anyway, so it's fine.
Well, we hear you. We hear you. Mostly when you mess up, but we do hear you.
That's it. Everyone looks at. I just look at the drummer, make it look like it's his fault.
That's what you guys are doing. I wondered why you're always looking over your shoulder and glaring. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. Just look at the drummer and go, like, raise a hand, raise an eyebrow. Everyone's just like, screw this guy.
So, Matt, let's talk about your story. I'll give you my viewpoint, which is very limited in scope, and then we can talk about how we got to be talking today. I saw you pop up through our buddy Joe Branton doing some stuff with you, and then over the time, eventually our guy Alex was like, "Have you seen this guy Matt Parker? He's doing some cool stuff," and so. You're part of the Stringjoy family, and I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy. Plus, I need to just talk to more bassists in general. But then I found out you were such a bass six enthusiast and a very vocal bass six enthusiast, and I was like, oh man, we gotta get on here. You got to educate me on this instrument and why I don't own one yet.
We're gonna change that.
So let's get into your story. When did you start playing, and when did you start making content? And obviously, you said you've been gigging a lot. I want the full Matt Parker story.
Yeah, so like a lot of bass players, unfortunately, I started off as a guitar player. So I was 8 when I started playing guitar, and I vividly remember the guitar teacher, a guy called Jeff, at our school. He was like, why do you want to play guitar? And I was like, because my dad plays guitar. And like one of my earliest childhood memories is just walking past this, like, we have like a chain store in the UK called Argos. I don't think you guys have it, but it's like the equivalent of like, I guess it's almost like a bit like Walmart-y kind of thing, but less food stuff. It's just like random houseware and stuff like that. But it was quite a big retailer when we were growing up, and my dad had like an Argos Yamaha. So it had like an A serial number because it's like a specific one of those. And that, like, my earliest memory is literally remembering like walking past and just strumming open strings, and then my mum shouting at me from the kitchen to like leave my dad's guitar alone. And I would have been like 3 or something like that. So guitar's always been like a kind of a big thing in the house, and my dad is still to this day like very active like in the music community, and like has always been showing me new music growing up and stuff. So when I got to 8, I started playing guitar. Played guitar till I was like 20, maybe something like that, 22. And then I moved to Brighton, which is near Joe actually. And there's this site, I don't know if you know, it's called Join My Band. Have you heard of it? Well, I don't know if you guys have it.
No, I haven't.
It's pretty good because it's like bands looking for like specific things will say like, I'm like a metal drummer, I'm looking for gigs, or like we need a metal drummer, or whatever it ends up being. So I moved to Brighton and I just put out an ad that was like guitarist looking to join band. And I was like getting messages like, get to the back of the queue, mate, and stuff like this. And I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up like buying a Tokai jazz bass. And within a month I was out gigging as a bass player. And I'd always really been into like metal guitar and like rhythm and stuff like that. And so bass is just like a super condensed rhythm instrument largely. And I was like, oh, this is where I should have been the whole time. So I've never looked back. I kind of like don't really play guitar. Like I occasionally jump in as like a depth guitarist, like if someone like really needs it, but I don't own any guitars. I always just have to kind of like buy one for the gig and then sell it afterwards and stuff. So I did that recently. I bought a Player, is it Player 2 Mustang in that kind of like weird off yellow color. I just bought it, gigged it, and then just immediately sold it for more than I paid for it. And I was like, oh, cool, that's fun.
All right, that worked out.
It went out and earned some gig money and then left for pastures. And so yeah, anyway, so started playing bass, started gigging a lot, and then was kind of just gigging in like local bands and stuff like that. Moved down to Devon, which is where my wife's from, where we live now. And then I was in the like kind of entertainment industry anyway. I was like doing marketing for like a quite big entertainment company down here. And then COVID hit, and loads of us got made redundant because one of our key markets was like China and stuff like that. So the content side of things just started from me looking for something to do while I was finding a job, basically. So I kind of like sat in my loft studio, just like filming, like, oh, here's a rewritten bass line for, K-pop, or here's a rewritten bass line for Periphery or whatever it was at the time. And yeah, from there, I kind of, I don't want to say it took off because I'm nothing like big now, but it kind of just started getting attention, I guess. Like the videos were doing well. I was getting like a lot of like reposts from like brands of just gear that I was using. And I've always been massively into like the gear side of things anyway. So I just started doing kind of like short form gear reviews, like for Instagram mainly, like, 90 seconds long. Like, here's the instrument, here's what it does, like, here's all the specs in like 50 seconds, and then here's like 20-second sound clip. And from there, it's just kind of grown and grown and grown. And now, like, I'm working with brands doing like YouTube videos. Like, I go up to like, HQs and do demos and stuff like that. That's kind of how I got into that world. And now that and gigging is like the majority of what I do, day to day now. Like, certainly at the moment, like, I just seem to be gigging too much. But that kind of stuff it's kind of taken off, really. And that's kind of what I do is like, like probably like 3/5 of my job now is just doing kind of like content or music stuff, which is awesome. Like, my wife always jokes that I wanted to be boy at Bass World when I was younger, and like I finally become boy at Bass World. So she's loving it. But yeah, it's cool. So that's kind of like a really, I guess, brief overview from starting to how I got here. But now, as I said, like, I'm kind of working with Stringjoy, like, and I don't want to shamelessly plug them too hard, obviously, because it might seem a bit contrived, but they are honestly the best strings I've ever used. The first time I used them, I was like, oh my God, this is the best. Certainly for bass 6. The bass 6 ones are just top of the rung. They're excellent. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely no plugging of that company that ever happens on this show. Why would that be a thing? Don't look over my shoulder.
Yeah, right. It's just a weird coincidence, right?
That's so strange. Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, but it was kind of a weird thing because Scott and I actually met on the show. He was on episode like 20, cool. And that's how him and I got connected in the first place. And there for a while, I got involved because I took a loan out of my retirement plan and, invested a little bit into the company very early on. And I've just been, deeply involved ever since. But there was a few, maybe like 2 years, year and a half, where it was like, how do I explain this? Because I didn't immediately like make an announcement because I was still so small at the time too. Like, and it still is small, relatively speaking. To the gear world, where it was like, well, like, okay, some guy that has a podcast is involved in this brand new string company. Like, who cares? It didn't feel like something that would be an announcement. Whereas I guess if it happened now, it would be something I'd be like, hey, guess what, everybody? Because I'm been doing it for so long. But at the time, it was like, how do we, and then it kept growing, and my involvement kept growing, and it was just like, well, how do I was like, I guess you just kind of start mentioning it here and there until people get it. And that's just basically how it had to happen. Just start when it comes up conveniently, like not trying to do a shameless plug, but it's going to come up because it's your part of my day to day. Just let it be kind of a natural, like, let people find out that way versus like plant a big flag and wave it around.
Well, I think that kind of,
so it was kind of weird.
I think that's kind of like almost like summarizes from an outsider's perspective of watching the brand grow. That almost feels kind of like how it's grown. It seemed really organic to me. Like, it's not been like super hard pushing and like, other brands like, doing bits with like, I don't know, players like, just god tier musicians like, people like Steve Vai and stuff, like doing like string demos and stuff. It seemed a lot more of like a grassroots movement, but based on the quality of the product, which I think is quite nice, really. Like, it seems to me that people are using the product and then realizing that it's actually very good. Like, my local shops are now stocking it as far as I can tell, with no prompting from anyone in like a rep perspective. It's just people have asked for it, and then it's appeared, which is really nice to see.
It's a little bit of both. I mean, we definitely do push it hard. We push it harder in the States because for the longest time, it's kind of funny. And I get it. But when we first started, no stores wanted us because nobody was asking for it. And so, it was like a little bit of a catch-22 that the old school way of doing it in the guitar world was you had to go through retail. That was the viewpoint with a lot of them. And if you didn't go through retail, then retailers didn't want you. But retailers didn't want us because nobody knew who we were. So it was like this weird position where we were forced to go direct first. And I'm really glad that we did, because that let us actually market pretty aggressively in the States, because we could see a direct, like, okay, we invest over here and this output comes out. Whereas retail is a lot more nebulous, from a brand perspective. You're like, okay, let's start doing some marketing here. And in 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, maybe we'll see what comes out on the other side, with a reorder or something. It's a little bit harder to tell. So we do push pretty aggressively in the States. And we're actually like in the process of trying to figure out how to adapt that to the UK and the EU and the whole world, really. But we are starting to get more representation in the UK through our distribution partners. And so, and working through folks like yourself, getting the word out. It's really helpful. So thank you.
Things that I really like about the Stringjoy basic strings, actually. I try not to do too much work with companies, or really any work, if it's a product that I'm not massively into or interested in, or that I can see myself using. But with the Stringjoy stuff, especially in the bass six world, it's a bit of a flawed instrument by nature, which means that string choice is quite important. And the Stringjoy strings are by far the best, in my opinion, on the market, because the tension on them feels really good. They kind of feel a lot more like a bass string. And although Fender do a slightly heavier gauge in that they do like 100 bottom end, so you get a low E that is a 100 gauge, so like a proper bass gauge string. The 95s on the Stringjoys feel equivalent in terms of tension, but they offer a lot more dynamic content. So I would say the lows feel richer, but then the upper mids and kind of like upper harmonic register is a lot more dynamic, and you get way more sustain as well. In fact, I actually did a video on like the stock strings, the Dodaros versus the Stringjoys, and like the Stringjoys fresh out the box sustained for like 25 seconds, and everyone was like, I can't believe how long this is sustaining for. I think I ended up cutting it short. So they're just crazy, and I've turned so many people onto them because so many people because bass six again is quite niche, and certainly these days as a bass, people often message like, what strings should I use, like what hardware should I use, do I need a new bridge, blah blah. And I'm always just like, look, first things first, put some proper strings on it, put some Stringjoys on it, see how you get on, and if you think you need any other mods, take it from there. But honestly, the strings just make that particular instrument just play how it should. They're excellent.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And a lot of this comes down, and I don't want to turn this into the Stringjoy show. We already have our own podcast where we don't talk about strings at all, but still. Scott is obsessed with this stuff. Like, I'm into it, but he has figured out that there's this one thing that he knows more about than possibly anybody on the planet, and he really like cares about it. And I remember I've told this story a million times. When he first was going to come on the podcast, I was like, we're going to talk about strings for an hour. And now we've talked about strings almost every day for 10 years. Like, I think I've been involved in 10 years officially. So it's crazy how, a few pieces of wire can really just change your whole existence. It's the smallest thing. It's weird.
It's crazy. Me and some friends have talked about this before. So there's another podcast called In the Pocket Pod, which is like a bass podcast by my friend Johnny Dibble and Chris Horrocks. And we've talked about strings before. It's like the first mod you should ever do is strings, because it's the first thing that you interact with, like on a tactile basis. It's like the first thing you feel on the left hand. It's the first thing that you feel as a bass player on the right hand as well, typically. and they will make such a big difference. Like people underestimate the difference in like core types and tension on the overall string, like the type of windings, how many windings it has. Is it a flat? Is it a round? All of these things make such a huge difference, not only tonally, but also how it feels, and then your subsequent interaction with the instrument based on that feeling. And I feel like they're almost like the unsung hero of mods and stuff like that, because they're so basic. Obviously, most people I would guess at least know how to restring an instrument, even if they don't know how to do like a full setup. But it can make such a big difference. Like even just going from, for example, like the stock 85 gauge that comes on the Squier version of the Bass 6 up to the 95 from Stringjoy, it just makes the bass feel so much more like a proper bass instrument. And especially because obviously, a lot of the gauges are balanced, so everything just kind of, it's weird. It's not the same timbre, but they almost have like the same like output and stuff like that across strings and stuff like that. If you've got your pickup set properly, and it just it makes like a kind of quirky instrument immediately more usable just from like a pretty cheap mod of actually stringing it properly. And they're crazy how much they sustain. Honestly, it blew me away the first time I played a set, and I was just like, what has happened to this? Like it is sustained for like 20 seconds at a time, whereas usually for the short scale, they kind of like die out quite quickly usually. And I was just like, okay, I'm all in on these now.
So what drew you? Like you even have it in your bio that like you're a big Bass 6 enthusiast. Is this because you originally started on guitar and therefore it was kind of a natural in between of the two, or what drew you to the instrument?
So the first thing that drew me to it is I remember exactly where I was the first time I saw one. So I actually saw our friend Joe Branton of Guitar Nerds fame doing a demo for GAK where he used to work for the Pawn Shop one. Do you remember that? It came out in like 2012. It had like it was a humbucker in the bridge, but in like a Jazzmaster style housing. And it had like different switching and stuff. But I remember him doing the demo and me being like, that's so weird. And I kind of just used to keep thinking about it like sporadically. And then there's a bass player called Julie Slick, and she has like a custom Lakeland version. And she pulled it out on this like pedal show. It wasn't that pedal show or whatever it was, but it was some effects thing on YouTube. And she was doing some Eventide stuff using the pitch factor. And she was playing like triads essentially, but it was like doing all this crazy arpeggiation through the pedal. And I was just like, what is that? Because that's the most insane sound I've ever heard come from a bass. And that just put me on this like path of being like, this thing's so weird, but I love it. So, and I just like the idea of having a bass with a vibrato as well, because we don't get enough love as bass players with like weird, like wiggle stick action. So I was like, okay, it's got 6 strings, it's a short scale bass, it's got some cool switching, and it's got like a vibrato. So like, I'm kind of pretty intrigued at this point. And since then, I've probably had like 6 or 7. I gig one of them as my main bass. I've gigged it for the last 2 years as like my main bass. I take other basses out as well, but like if I can get away with, if it's like a set where I don't have to do any like slap or anything like that, I'm like, well, I can do everything that I need to do on the Bass 6, and I've got additional range if I like want to take solo, or if it's like a power trio setup or something, then I can actually run the strangle switch and then like use like guitar sins and stuff if I've got like an MFX unit on the floor and stuff. So from that perspective, it opens up songwriting to bass players, and also kind of gives you a different playing experience because the string spacing is a lot tighter. But for me, I'm like one of the only people that I know of that plays them predominantly fingerstyle. I don't use a pick, so it's interesting. I think aesthetically, I probably do like it because I love Jags and Jazzmasters. Like when I used to play guitar, I was like really into offset. So I think it's almost like it gives me all the flavor of like a Jag, for example, but with a usable range for me in like what I do musically. So like it kind of, I don't know. It's I've said on podcasts before, it's my desert island instrument because you can get perfect perfectly usable bass tones out of it that sound great, but then you can also do like really weird ambient stuff. It's got all this like sympathetic harmonic resonance behind the bridge as well, because you've got so much string between the bridge and the vibrato plate that you can get these really weird overtones, especially if you run like the overtones through like chorus, so you can like strum behind the bridge and you get all this really weird like twinkly stuff. So they're just like a really interesting instrument to have if you're just looking for something to like increase your sonic palette, and they definitely make you play differently to like a jazz bass, for example, because you're playing with something that has like a quicker decay typically, and the string spacing is tighter, so it makes you a bit more like, it almost makes your right hand feel a little bit more conscientious about your note choices, rather than just like, you know, for example, like jazz bass, like where you kind of want to noodle everything because you're just kind of like shredding away on it. It makes me kind of a bit more conscious about like where my right hand placement is and stuff like that. But then you get like loads of different like tonal varieties. If you play near the neck, it becomes really dubby. Whereas if you kind of play over the bridge, you can kind of like, if you're on the bridge pickup and you roll the tone back, you get like a really passable jazz bass like on the bridge pickup, kind of like jacko honky sounds. And yeah, I absolutely love them. They're just so cool, because as well, I know you're a metal guy and so am I. So like, if I want to play like 8-string riffs, I'm like, okay, I can do this. All I need to do is flick the low cut off and then, you know, go to the bridge, and you get that kind of like, you'll know what I'm talking about, but obviously it's that like kind of spanky single coil chug that isn't like quite prevalent in like, you know, kind of like bridgier sections of like bands like Periphery and stuff like that, where they flick over and you get like a different tonal character from a single coil when you're like really heavily driving it. And yeah, you get some absolute killer guitar tones. They make a great baritone. I argue with people in the internet all the time about this, because everyone's like, it's a baritone guitar. It's definitely a bass, but it can be a really, really good pseudo guitar if you want it to be as well. So yeah, it's just one of those things that I think everyone should at least play one. And I think most serious studio musicians should probably just have a cheap one on the rack, because I find them really inspiring, but also you can kind of do a lot of recording ground on one instrument. You know, again, you can get a really good P-bass impression out of it if you run the neck and the middle together, or just the middle, and have like tone on full with the strangle switch off. Like it'll do a really good kind of like 51 style P, you know, with that like big middle single coil. Or, you know, you can get like really good reggae tones out of it, because again, short scale, really tubby, you know, played up near the neck, just have the neck on with a tone at kind of like 20-30%. You get some great dub tones. Or you can, like, you know, if you're a country guy, I know you like country as well, but like, you know, it's all over country records for like doubling bass lines, doubling guitar lines, but like an octave lower. And it's just super useful.
Hey Rocky,
What's up, Vincent?
did you hear about the latest?
Latest what?
The latest drop from Maris. It's totally insane.
No, tell me more.
Maris just released Enzo X.
What's that?
Enzo X is a supernova expansion from the original Enzo into the highest quality and most flexible studio synthesizer ever created in a pedal format.
Whoa!
Enzo X combines 5 synth types, 5 drives, 3 reverbs, and 5 modulations. It also includes a full 2.5 second stereo delay, all in one pedal.
That sounds hard to use.
It's not. The UI is from the same family as the Mercury X and the LVX. It's super easy to dive in and see exactly what you are tweaking in real time.
Oh, I see. It's right there on the screen.
Yep.
Is it this for guitars, though?
Nope. You can plug almost anything into the Enzo X, including your MIDI controller.
That sounds incredible. Where do I get it?
You can pick up Enzo X online at maris.us or at any of their fine retailers across the globe.
Did you just say across the globe?
They know what I meant.
Wait, are we getting paid for this?
I'm still waiting on that cash money from last time.
He better at least give us pizza for dinner.
I'm not giving him his Enzo X back until he does.
For more information, make sure you check out maris.us, and apparently I have to go order a pizza. How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. I think you've sold me. I've been sold for a while, but I think you really sold me now, because the first time I picked up a Bass 6, and people have heard me tell this story before, but I was confused. I didn't really know what it was or what I was supposed to do with it. So I was doing like regular chords and stuff, like I was playing a guitar, and I was like, well, that's not really working. I mean, it kind of does if you slide up the neck in certain positions. You can do some of that stuff, but I was just doing like, let's see what a G sounds like. And I was like, well, that isn't it. Yeah, that's not what this is for. And so I was like, I don't even know what this instrument is. This was, 10 plus years ago. And then I played one after understanding instruments better, honestly. And I was like, oh, I get this. And I even played it on a buddy's record. Shout out Daniel. How you doing? And now I'm like, every time I see one, I'm like, wow, why don't I own one of those? And now I think you may have just like flip-flopped a bunch of stuff, because I've been kind of looking at Gretches and a few other things. I'm like, I love down tuning. I love baritone guitars. I really enjoy playing bass. I actually have 3 basses, which people may be surprised by, but I do. And I really enjoy playing bass. So I'm like, well, why would I not have a Bass 6? It's like right in between a baritone and a bass, kind of, in my brain, anyway. I mean, yeah. And while dipping its toes into both areas, I should just have one. I should just go get one. And they make a good Squier version. So what's the excuse? I have no excuse. I need to get one.
100%.
I think that's what this comes down to.
The newest Squiers as well have like a ton of foibles. So back when Squier released it, they released the vintage modified range, and it was flawed. The bridges on them were particularly bad. So not only they were kind of like this individual height adjustable, like Jazzmaster, like vintage Jazzmaster style saddles, where they would kind of, you'd only set the radius on them and then you'd set the bridge height, but they used to wind themselves down. And also the string used to jump out of the saddle a lot. So everyone was like, these bridges are just unusable, because you couldn't intonate them properly either. Like, they were really difficult to get a proper intonation on. So everyone's like, these are unusable. And also everyone was like, you have to shim the neck to get any kind of break angle to stop that string jumping out of the saddle. So everyone was like, these kind of suck. But then the Classic Vibe range came out, and they basically had listened to all of the foibles of the last couple of years and changed it. So now you get like a Mustang style fixed bridge with the barrel saddles. So they're just, the radius is set from factory, and then you just change the base plate up and down. And they've also manufactured a slope into the neck pocket, so you don't have to shim the neck. So you get that break angle. And yes, and that's made a huge difference. So from that perspective, the new ones are almost like pretty much almost there out of the box. The only thing is they've still got those really poor 0.84. I mean, you might love it because it'll feel like the bottom set of an 8 string. So it'll feel like that kind of similar tension to like playing an 8. For me, as predominantly a bass player, I like to up the gauge because you kind of get that. It's useless as a bass, but as a baritone, it's pretty cool because you know that kind of when you hit a low tune guitar, it goes sharp before it returns back to pitch. Like you can still get that kind of effect, which I kind of guess is synonymous with that style of like djenty, like proggy kind of vibe. But yeah, if you up the gauge, then it's basically perfect out of the box, and then it's just like mod to taste, which is seemingly what I do all the time because I can't leave anything stop.
Okay. Yeah, you really don't, do you? What are some of your favorite mods?
So on the bass sixes, I love. So there's a company called Herod. They're in Australia, and they use reclaimed aluminium, and they make like a full hardware package. So you can get like hardtail. If you're not going to use the vibrato and you want it to be a bit more stable, they make like a hardtail vibrato conversion plate, and you can get like different string lengths and break angles. So if you want like a super steep, sharp break angle, they've got like a really like far forward one, or you can get like the normal string length one, but just as a hardtail. And then they do like control plates and switch plates and neck plates and all that kind of stuff. So I always change up, and they're much lighter than like the chrome stock ones. So I always switch those out because you probably save like a fair chunk of weight with those. And then I quite often will change the bridge just because I'm a magpie and I see a nice bridge and I'm like, ooh, you'll be good. So, go for a stay trem. They're a bit wide at the stock. So you can, you can put like a wider base plate on and it intonates a bit easier. But the descendant bridge is really good as well. There's a guy, Trent Guitars. He makes a really good bass 6 bridge. He's a tiny builder and he hand mills them himself. But he'll make you the saddles for the string gauges.
Wow.
So they decrease in string diameter, the saddles go down, so you get like a really fat one for the bottom, and then they kind of gradually taper off. And they're really nice. They're super, super stable as well. And then brass nuts, adjustable brass nuts. Because I do tend to jump between string gauges and string type a little bit, I like to get height adjustable brass nuts. So they've got like a screw in the middle. You can either just bring them up and down depending on where you want to go per string. That's a cool mod. And then recently I put some Lollers, the new SD bass 6 pickups, which are phenomenally good. They're probably the best pickups full stop I've ever used. They really open up the bottom end on the instrument, like add a bit more compression. And people who've heard, I've spoken with other people who have them, but like people who've played the bass 6 that I have them in have been like, it's the first time they feel like that instrument like really hangs with like a 34-inch scale bass, like a jazz bass or a P bass or something. They're like, wow, the bottom end is just so tight and like articulate. And so they're a really good mod. Massive shout out to Lola for sending some of those through. But yeah, just love modding. The basics is such an easy platform to mod as well. Like it's basically, it's so modular in its, everything just bolts in and it's a good one. So yeah, there's some of the mods. But then, other basses, I'll just route them out, put weird pickups in them and change necks and get weird with it. Just depends what it is. Yeah. I'm trying to keep.
Yeah, it's.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say I'm kind of weird because like I'm a pretty DIY guy in general. With like I built this shed and like I'm pretty hands on with things. I like working on cars and all that stuff. But like with my instruments, I'm capable of doing all kinds of stuff to them. But like for some reason, I don't really want to. Like if I pick up a guitar or a bass or anything, and I'm not really that into it for whatever reason, I'm like, this feels pretty good, but the pickups are kind of weird or whatever it is. I'm like so lazy with it that I'll just be like, I'm not gonna buy that one. Like I'm not really a modder of instruments so much. I have done some, and like one of my favorite guitars is my first Les Paul, and that's been modded with some Billy Gibbons whisker buckers and like a Gun Street solderless harness and things. It's pretty easy stuff. But like for me, I'm just like not a DIY guitar person. Like I've never built a pedal. Well, I take it back. I have built some pedals for like in a production sense, but like I've never like sat down and been like, I'm gonna build a pedal kit. I don't know. I'm weird about that stuff. Like I would think that I would be more into like doing amp mods and like doing all, and I'm just like, nah, if I don't like it out of the box, I'm just not gonna get it.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. I don't know what that is.
I think for me, it stemmed from like when I first started doing like my own repair work and setups and stuff. I was just a student and I could not afford like £40 or £50 for like a like a good setup and stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna figure out how to do it. And I took 2 years. When I'd done 2 years of university, I took a gap year and I trained as a motorbike mechanic, and then went back and finished my degree. And that was like really good for like just being like, you can take a motorbike apart and put it back together and it will work. So you will be able to take a Strat apart and put it back together, or whatever it was. So like that was really instrumental in like helping me, because previous to that I'd always been scared that I was going to ruin something that I loved so much, like so into guitar, and like I was like, oh my god, I'm going to like ruin the thing that I kind of like love, people aside, like the thing that I love most in the world. And then once I was just in it, I was just all in. I was like, oh, this is actually kind of, it's not as difficult as I was expecting. And then I feel like for me, I bond more because I've bought some absolute dog instruments before. I bought a 1981 transitional jazz bass. It was a 79 serial, but it was like they had like parts left over before they were closing Fullerton down. So it's actually an 81, I think it was, an 83. I can't remember, it was like early 80s, but with a 79 serial. And that came just so ruined. Like it had the bullet truss rod adjuster, and someone had over tightened it because they didn't realize that the bottom of the like neck heel had like a slight ski jump in it. So they couldn't get the relief where they wanted it because the back end of the neck was bowed. So they were just cranking it. And they cracked the fretboard behind the nut, or in front of the nut rather, down to the block inlay at the beginning. So I ended up having to like sand the board, re-radius it, clamp the board, like epoxy it, sand it again, and then like put a new nut on it and stuff like that. And it was like perfect after that. And it was a really weirdly thin jazz bass neck as well. So like I ended up like steaming it into a back bow with like the truss rod off, and then like the string tension would like bring it back up and stuff. And then I ended up doing that, and that was like one of my favorite basses after that. And the guy I bought it off was like, this bass will never play again. He's like, if you buy the body with the pickups in it, you can just have the neck for free. And I was like, okay. So I was in it for like 200 quid. And then it just became like this awesome vintage jazz bass because I'd spent so much time working on it. And it like, prior to that, I'd never really liked jazz basses that much. I'd always been like more of a P bass guy and stuff. But once I got that one and spent so much time like fixing it up, and then I just used to like leave it out, so I'd like sit and noodle on the sofa with it, or like I'd just leave it out nearby so that if I needed like a quick session or something, I would just pick that one up. And like I fell in love with that bass. Like it was so much more than the sum of its super cheap parts. So I think that was again just like a thing of, once you start doing your own work, it's almost like a bonding experience sometimes. It might not necessarily be the best instrument, but if you spend a bit of time on it, it ends up becoming like one of your favorite ones. So I think that's nowadays why I tend to do more of my own, well, I do all my own work on instruments, but that's why, because I almost feel like more of a connection, because I feel like, I don't know if you do, but sometimes you pick up an instrument and it just doesn't really feel good or bad. It just feels a bit like spiritless, a bit like a tool. So it does a job, and like you need a P bass for a session or something. So you pick up your P bass and you're like, it's fine. It's a tool to get the sound that I need for this session or this gig or whatever it is. But I feel like sometimes like if you spend time doing like a fret level on it, and then it plays really well afterwards, or like you've done like a really good job of setting it up, it almost feels like the instrument is like rewarding you for spending that time on it, and then like becomes like one of your favorites, because it's almost like you've put something into it that's like, I don't know, it sounds so woo woo, but like you've almost like spent it's almost like taken on like an essence of some kind, and then it becomes a good instrument because you've almost spent the time on it. But I don't mean time in like just the work. It's like you've spent time bonding with it through the work. sounds woo-woo probably, but that's how I feel about sometimes things when I've been working on them, and it's like something that I wasn't that bothered about before. I'm like, it's just a generic bass, and then I end up being like, oh, actually, like I kind of love this because I've spent the last 5 hours working on it.
I don't know. I think there's something to that. You know, I relate it to cars a lot because, like, again, I don't really work on my guitars to that level. And to be totally real, like most of the time they don't need it. Like they live a pretty cushy life out here these days. You know, I'm not gigging. But so they, you know, they need a setup like once in a blue moon. And that's about the extent of it, really. So lucky there. But like with cars, you know, the car that I love most in the world isn't some, you know, well, they're expensive now, but they're not like a gazillion-dollar Ferrari or something. It's, you know, the car that me and my dad built as a teenager. And do I like it because I think it's a cool car? Yes. But also that car, like another one wouldn't be the same, even if it was the same car, because we poured hours and hours of literal blood, sweat, and tears into the thing. And to the best of my ability, I will never get rid of it. And if I do get rid of it, it'll probably go to my dad, you know, if I get into some dire financial straits or something. But I've managed to hold on to it for so long. And every time I go out, I go out in the garage, I just look at it. And I don't know, it does something. It's a weird feeling. And I think it's what you're talking about. I think it's that time spent doing that makes it more special, even if it was already special. It's just that time and energy pouring into something. I don't know, maybe it is woo-woo, but I feel like there's something to it.
I think there is, and I don't know if you feel this, because like, are you talking about your Camaro?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not the same, but like I have a jazz bass. It's a 72, which I gig all the time. I absolutely love it. It's the best jazz bass, as far as I'm concerned, that's ever been made. And everyone who's played it has just been like, wow, this is an amazing jazz bass. But when I got it, it didn't play like phenomenally well. Like the frets needed a level, like there's loads of dead spots on the neck that like kind of needed addressing. Like the setup was quite high. I like a really, really low action, and that setup was way too high for me. It needed like trustful adjustment and stuff like that. But I spent like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 days of like setting it up and letting the neck acclimate, and then like resetting it up and just going back and forth, going back and forth, going back and forth. And like now it's just like, it's the bass that if I need to learn something fast, I pick it up and I don't have to think about what my hands are doing or like what the setup's like, or like, is it too high, is it too low? I just pick it up and it's like my playing like 30% better on that bass than any other bass, because I spent a ton of time just like going over it all the time, and it sounds good anyway, but it's like telepathically playable now, almost. And it's that thing, I think, but that particular bass still has a couple of like minor issues because it's old. It's just like, you know, it's a 72, so it's whatever it is now, like, you know, 50 plus years old or something. And I think because it has flaws, it almost like gives it more character, because you know there's like, you know, the last fret on the neck is like a bit dead, or, you know, there's like a little crack in the binding somewhere and stuff like that. And like, or like someone who played it before me has like worn a tiny patch through the finish on the back of the neck and stuff. So you can sometimes feel it when you're thumb over. You don't notice it when you're playing, but like if you go looking for it, you'll find it kind of thing. And I think because of that, it's almost like that character, like you can't, I find this with like modern stuff. You can bend a modern instrument to kind of like whatever you want, because they're all CNC'd and they all kind of feel like fairly similar out of the box. Like you do get some good ones, but like I feel like it's getting harder and harder to find any distinguishable features as production techniques get more consistent. And I find that they almost feel, I find it harder to find a new instrument that doesn't feel sterile sometimes these days. Whereas like the old stuff, you kind of have to play to the instrument. And I imagine the car is the same. Like you can't just like throw that car into a corner at like 75 or 80 and like expect the brakes to be amazing, or, you know, the suspension to be like amazing, like a new car, which will feel
Oh no,
But
not that one at all.
No, but a new car, which would feel fairly lifeless to drive, I'd imagine you probably could do that, but you're not getting any like tactile feedback from driving it. It's just a thing that it's like white goods almost, unless you're getting like a performance car or something that's like feels like white goods. It's just a mode of transport, and I feel like sometimes like new instruments feel a little bit like that. It's just like a tool that feels very consistent, but with no overriding character. Whereas the older stuff, like, I love that jazz bass, but I'm always like, it has a little bit of kick in it where I'm like I said it plays really well, and it plays amazingly well for what it is. But if I want to do like tapping on it, it's a 7.25 inch radius, so like super curvy, and I know that I'm going to end up like fretting it out if I want to do like a tapping line on it, unless I'm like perfect technique on it. And like, you know, if I want to do like any kind of more technical playing, there are limitations to the instrument because it's got like, comparatively with a new bass, it's got like quite a wide bridge string spacing and like, again, really round radius. So like you have to kind of like play around those features a little bit rather than just going in like, it's got a 15-inch radius or a 20-inch radius. And like, I got the action at like -2 mil, you know what I mean? Like it's like on the fretboard kind of thing. Like, and I like that because of it, because it makes playing experiences a bit more memorable. Whereas like, with the newer stuff, I don't get that as frequently. I think maybe I'm just, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment or something, but I just think that there's so much character in things that are slightly flawed. And maybe that's why I like bonding with things that I end up fixing as well, because like you're kind of working out those character flaws with it.
Yeah, I think you made a really good analogy there, because I had an experience with this directly as it relates to cars, and I'll get it to guitars here in a second. But years ago, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, one of my friends bought a Tesla Model 3 Performance, which is basically as far as I understood it at the time, the fastest one that wasn't the Plaid. And he's like, come drive it. And so I drove it in this very familiar area to me. And it felt like I was driving a roller coaster. You know, it was so smooth, insanely quick. I took a 25 mile per hour corner at 70, and it was like didn't break a sweat. Mm-hmm. Like it was, or allegedly I did. Why would anyone ever do that? That's illegal. Naughty boy. Yeah. But it was insane. It was crazy, and it really changed my idea of what like a car could be. But at the same time, exactly what you said. The next day, I was like, you know what? Let's take the Camaro out. Way slower, clunkier. Has to take that same corner at no more than 30. You know, like it's but it's loud. It's obnoxious. It takes a while to warm up. It's like everything that you quote unquote don't want in a modern car, and it brought the biggest smile to my face. I was like, you know, there's something about it. There's just like a weird connection. You feel the rumble. It's fast enough to, you know, still have fun with. But the Tesla would absolutely stomp it in a drag race, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But yet, still, it was like, this is a different experience. And I find the same thing that you find with vintage guitars. I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm like looking over the microphone at like this 65 Melody Maker, which is, you know, an old student model guitar. And that thing is just a ripper. It's so much fun to play. And, you know, it's sitting right next to, you know, a Les Paul Custom and some more modern stuff. And my eye is drawn to the 65 student guitar. And I'm going to play it later after this conversation, because it has things that are wrong with it. It's got like melted spots in the pick guard. And, you know, it's got a wraparound tailpiece. And, you know, the neck has this really weird taper to it that I love, but some people hate. And I don't know. It pulls different things out of you. Whereas if you just had like, and there's a place for this. I don't want to feel like I'm criticizing, but if you just have like that modern kind of, you know, multi-scale, ergonomically designed, perfect thing, it's just going to make you do something else. And I think a lot of us, you know, maybe relate to Jack White, and it might get loud when he was like, I want to fight the instrument. I want to make it, I don't want it to be easy. I used to not understand that at all. And now I'm going like, I don't want it to be like a total like knockdown, drag out brawl, but I get what he's saying. I want things to be a little weird. The things I like about a Les Paul is that it's not perfectly ergonomic. You know, it's ergonomic to me because I've like played it so long. It's almost an extension of my body. But I like, that tellies are slabs. I don't necessarily want one with a belly cut, type of thing. I like the imperfections of some of these designs, and, ES style guitars where they're big and round and kind of in the way. I don't know. There's some charm to it, and it sounds kind of stupid, but I think it's true.
I think that's absolutely right. Like, for me, it's that thing of when you have something that's like almost like too perfect or like too consistent, it feels a bit too clinical. It doesn't feel like there's any super memorable characteristics to it. So me personally, I find this stuff with like Ibanez a little bit. I think they are great. Like, just to be clear, I think they're like great value for money. I think they make really good products. But for me personally, as what I want from an instrument, they don't do a lot for me, because like I pick them up and I'm like, this is functionally very good, but it doesn't give me any sense of a character about it. It's almost like this is a tool that's come off like a CNC line, and it will do whatever you want it to do, but with like no kind of like redeeming or terrible factors about it. It's just kind of like it's there and it does a thing, and then like you put it back on the rack and you're like, I've already forgotten what that was, like 15 minutes after you played it. And that's how I feel about it. Whereas like P basses, for example, they've typically got pretty wide necks, so you're immediately aware of like the string spacing at the nut just being like really wide comparatively with a lot of like modern basses. You're like, this slows your left hand down a little bit and makes you a bit more conscientious about your note choices. Or like a Hofner, for example, like the classic Beatle bass style Hofners, like they're super plunky. They are really dubby, but like they've got the quickest decay because they're a short scale anyway, and then they've just got this like really kind of by today's standard archaic bridge where it's just like a piece of wood with like little slots of fret tang that you put in slots depending on how you need to change your intonation, and that's the saddle. So like the sustain is just like so bad, but because of that, you end up playing it like I've got a theory. This is why like Paul McCartney's like bass lines are quite melodic, because he was having to keep the instrument going because it just wouldn't sustain through like a bar or like over a bar line or anything. So he was like having to keep his foot on the gas and play like quite melodic lines to make the instrument like play through the songs almost, because he was having to pick to get it to make a note, and then it would just like blum, blum, and they're like quite plunky. So they make you play like that. They kind of make you play like almost like more staccato-y, just because they're intrinsically, I don't want to say flawed, but like if you were looking for an instrument that's like actually sustains and has like, it will hold over a bar line or something like that, then, or just, hold a single note for a bar, then they're not the bass for you. But they do bring out something in you, because like, I need to kind of keep my foot on the gas. I need to keep this instrument like singing. And they're great basses. Like me and Johnny Dibble, my good friend and like fellow bass player, we were talking about this, and we're like, when we were younger, we both thought these were kind of like naff and like just for the Beatles. But as we got older, we're like, actually, these are so cool. If you just want a different flavor, you want like a short, quick decay, really plummy initial attack that cuts off really quickly, they're like a really cool vibe. And again, a lot of that character comes from the fact that, on paper, you would look at it and go, oh, this is a bit inefficient.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting bass too, because, and I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way. Surely I'm not, but it's possible. It's such an iconic instrument, and the Beatles are possibly the most important band of all time. I don't think that's even like an overstatement. But for me, and I cannot get over this, I don't know why. I've had people be like, oh man, I got to get one of those Beatle basses. I got to get one of those Hofners. And I like cannot get over how it looks. To me, it just looks so dumb. I'm just like, I can't do it. I should be able to get over it. It's made some of the most iconic records of all time. And for some reason, I'm hung up on the fact that I don't like the shape of it. It's very weird. I can usually look past that a little bit. And my taste is definitely not for everyone. But for some reason, I cannot vibe with the shape of the Beatle bass. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it bothers me so much. It really shouldn't.
That's so interesting because, like, as a bass player, like, one of my reference still is like uprights, because, you know, even just like studying electric bass, you end up studying like some upright lines and stuff. And because of that, you end up, or I did, I don't know if everyone does, but like I certainly did. I ended up kind of like doing like a bit of a dive into like the viola family and stuff like that, because that's, you know, part of contrabass and stuff. And then I ended up like looking into like all the production techniques of like how they carve stuff like double basses, cellos, violins, and all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, the work required to make a good acoustic, like classical instrument, sorry, I'm gonna cough. The work required to make one of these is bananas compared to like an electric guitar. And
crazy. Yeah.
Insane. And so when I look at the Beatle bass or the Hofner violin bass, I look at it and go, oh, it just reminds me so much of like classic viol family instruments. I'm like, it makes me think that it's classy. I'm like, I bet this took ages to build, even though it's probably not. It's probably like, you know, it was all like CNC and stuff still. But like, I was like, because they still use spruce and stuff as well, which I quite like, and you don't find in a lot of basses. So it's interesting how like one thing, Johnny was mentioning this the other day. He was saying that like people, when because he bought one recently, and everyone was like, apparently was just like, wow, that's really classy. Like, because people just assume it's like an upmarket instrument because it looks like a violin. So people who aren't musicians are just like, wow, I bet that was expensive, kind of thing, because it's just, it's got that like visual insinuation of it being like part of the violin family. So it's interesting, like how it's like different strokes for different folks. Because like for you, you're like, ooh, no. Whereas I'm like, you know what? It's really growing on me.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Lowe's has the Labor Day deals you need to give your home a new look. Buy one, get one free select interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Then, add the final touch with 2 for $8 on select 2.5 or 3-quart mums. Refresh your home and save big while doing it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Mums offer in-store only. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowes.com/rebates for details.
Yeah, I think it, for me, the reason is I don't know if this is like just me trying to validate an emotional response. Probably is. But to me, it's like almost cheapens the violin family. It's like, oh, this is a novelty version of that, you know? That's what it feels like to me. I don't know if that's even fair, but to me, like, I do think that double basses and violins look classy, and I do respect the heritage there, but I think that looks like a toy for some reason. I don't know, but I also have never talked to anybody else that felt the same way, so I'm willing to admit there might be something wrong with me. That is acceptable.
I think the entry level ones can look a little cheap, like the £2,000 ones, which I don't know what that'd be in dollars, probably like maybe 2,700 or something like that. But like those ones where they've got like that like kind of like buck match flame spruce back and stuff on them, I'm just like, oh, that looks so good. Like the like cheap like poly covered, you know, like flat black or like kind of naff sunburst ones. I'm a bit like, yeah, these do look a bit like catalog guitar. But they're like the really nice like German made ones. I'm just like, oh yeah, that is cool. But yeah, I'm firmly in the import range price point.
Yeah. No, I get it. Hey, I totally understand. So we've talked a lot about basses, which is great. That's what you were here for. But we haven't really talked about the rest of your rig. Like when you go to do all these gigs that you've been doing, what's your grab and go situation look like?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of different ones. So I've got like various rigs, but my gig rig at the moment is an Ashdown Rootmaster Evo 3 500. So it's just a really lightweight Class D 500 watt head. But it's got like a quite a comprehensive EQ. It's got a compressor on there. It's got the kind of classic Ashdown like sub control. So it adds like essentially like a sub harmonic bass frequency. I don't use it a load, but sometimes I do use it to like flatten out the sound a little bit. And then I run that into a 410 with an additional 210 extension. So essentially a 610. Because
nice. Let's
make rigs big again.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, so I'm using that, or I'm using the ABM 600, which is like a hybrid head. So it's got like a valve preamp and then like a solid state 600 watt kind of like power amp. That's pretty good, but that's again a bit heavier. So at the moment, just because I've been doing so much gigging, I've just been taking the lighter head out just because it kind of like lives in the car. And just, you know, literally it's like a one hand. It weighs probably maybe 1.5 kilos or 2 kilos. It's like, you know, throw it around. It doesn't weigh anything. And then in the studio setup, which again is like on the temporary room at the minute, but I've got this. So this is my Ashdown LB13 2N. So it's a 30 watt all valve head. It's got pretty minimalistic controls really, but one of the cool things that it has is got a built-in load box. So I don't need to run like an external.
Cool.
Yeah, really cool. So I can run the head straight into a door without having to run like a load box or a cab or anything like that. And then it's got some like analog kind of like cab emulation in it as well. So it's got, I think it's got 6, yeah. So here on this control here, you'll hear it clicking. It's got like 6 pre-selected kind of like tonal characteristics, which like mimic Ashdown cabs. So it's got like 210 and 115 and stuff. So if you want like an analog cab sound, it will change the EQ response of the amp accordingly with that, which is pretty cool as well. So I use that almost all the time because it's such a good head. And then I've got a fly rig, which is the cheapest thing I've probably bought in the last like 5 years, and it's so good. It's like Valeton, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's like an NFX floor unit. It's a GP-200 LT, so it's like a...
Oh, yeah.
Mate, I bought it. It was like 120 quid, like new in box for like B stock or something like that. It was so cheap. And I use that when I just want to like take, you know, like just out into a PA, just like fly rig. I don't have to do anything. So I built up a load of patches on that. But it's got so many good captures in it. It's got like Aguilar bass head, but for guitar as well, it's got like a load of Mesa stuff, Soldano heads. It's got like 3 different types of tube screamer in it. It's got like so much stuff. And you can change like the signal path around and stuff like that. Obviously, you know, do all your pre-saves and stuff like that. You can use it as an interface. So I've got a Aguilar tone hammer like preset, which is like my kind of like clean bass sound. And then for drive, I've got an SVT, Ampeg SVT, like capture through a cab sim of like an 810. So that's kind of what I'm running, like if I just don't want to take a rig with me, basically, because it's just it sounds great for what it is, and I feel like the audience do not care as much as we care. So if I don't want to take a big rig and have stage sound, I'm just like, I'll just use the PA and I'll just run a good cab sim and stuff. But that's been the surprise buy in the last kind of like 12 months. I bought it just for some guitar tracking stuff that I had to do with Basic, but I didn't want to use plugins. I wanted to use like hardware, so I bought that just basically for these like super driven sections where I was using like a Soldano capture. But then I was like, well, I might as well make some bass stuff as well. So I've got like 3 main bass patches, which is Matte Funky, which has just got like a really aggressive envelope filter on it, and then I've got Matte Clean and Matte Overdrive. And they're like my kind of like 3 patches that I use all the time. So that's kind of like my various different stage rigs and studio rigs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've never done, and I'm not a gigging musician. I never really have been, and I've certainly never done any fly gigs where I was playing stuff that wasn't already there. But because I'm just having to adjust this to my own experiences for everything. But I recently compressed my camera rig down from like a huge backpack full of cables and all this stuff, you know, and very expensive camera and lenses and all this stuff, and where it weighs like 40 pounds to like 2 little tiny, like, I don't know, 8-inch by 4-inch zip up bags. And I can just take that and like do a podcast somewhere now.
Yeah,
it's like, awesome. I'm starting to have much more appreciation for the musicians that have been schlepping, you know, 8 by 10 cabs across the country for various gigs, and now they can condense it all into a pedal board.
It's crazy.
I get it more now than I ever have.
I flip flop because I go through like
wild.
I go through periods where like I want a massive rig, and I'm just like, you know what? It like for me it sounds better, and I do like having stage sound. It's a bit better. I use ears anyway, but like I do like having some stage sound. And a lot of the bands like they were just like, can you bring an amp? Like we'd just rather have some stage sound. And it's like we've got really good PAs for those bands, but like when you're moving air isolated for the bass player, so you're not having to like compete with different frequencies from the rest of the band. There's something to be said for me with having isolated cabs just for the bass, so that I'm pushing 4 cones, 6 cones, whatever it is. And I think it does sound a lot better. So that's why recently I've just been like, yeah, all the cabs, let's just make it happen. And it's been fine. It's been good fun. But yeah, you know, there's been some like silly seasons where I've had like 15 gigs in a row, like just every day in a row gigging, and you know, driving around loads of places, and I'm like, I don't want to do 15 load-ins of a 610 essentially. So I'm just going to take a small rig, and you know, I'll lean on the PA, and then I'll just monitor through it in ears and stuff, which is fine. I like using ears anyway. So, but yeah, recently,
I like using in-ears actually. I don't know if we back when I was playing with a band more, we were never playing in very big rooms. And we all were tone hounds and wanted to play loud tube amps and stuff. And like kind of the compromise situation we found for like having the best sound while also being able to like use our ridiculous rigs was actually like we would play in my friend's basement, and he ran a snake to his small studio that was just across like the walking path from the basement. And so we would put all of our cabs out there. This is like prior to direct solutions even really being a thing. Sure. We would put all our cabs over there and mic them like with SM57s and stuff, and then run that back to the headphone amp in the jam space. And And that was our solution for like being able to play with full volume amps and not have them feeding back constantly. Because it was just such a small area we were trying to play. It worked really well, and it kind of made me like fall in love with both. And I could hear at the end of the night because I could control the volume on my in-ears and didn't have to have an amp blasting me in the face. But what I came to love is like using in-ears with an amp behind me still moving air, but the in-ears, being sealed and protecting me from the volume. It's like kind of like getting to have your cake and eat it too. Some people complain about in-ears, and I feel like if you do both, like you get kind of the best of all worlds. But
100%.
My experience is a little bit limited compared to yours or most people who actually play real gigs.
100%. I mean, ears for me is such a big thing. So I used to, before I had kids, I didn't even have a car license. I rode motorbikes for over a decade, like as my sole mode of transport. Like if it was snowing, I would still be riding motorbikes. And I started to notice that at like 70 or 80 miles an hour, the wind noise is actually really loud. And like when you're young, you kind of don't notice it. But I started to notice that my high frequency hearing was just starting to get a little bit worse. And so I started like using earplugs. And after that, I was always really conscious about like keeping my hearing intact. So pre-using ears, I used to have I used to use like, this was like in the early days of like filtered earplugs. I used to use like filtered earplugs because I was like, I feel like the volumes that we're playing at are not going to do well in like 10 years time for my hearing. So once in-ears became a bit more prevalent, as in like you didn't need like, like a rack mounted transmitter with like 4 packs and like, now in-ear mono is so easy and cheap to get. Like you don't need all the nonsense of like a massive rig that you used to need. So when they became a bit more accessible, I was like really quick to be like, let's get on this. And also it means that you can start playing to click and stuff as well, which makes it a bit tighter if that's what you want to do. And have backing tracks and stuff, which is a separate conversation. But as you rightly said, the fact that you can seal yourself off from the majority of the volume, but still have like really articulate monitoring is just like such a win for yourself and hearing perspective. But also you're going to play way better if you're getting accurate monitoring, because that's like a pet peeve of everyone, I'm sure. If you're on stage and you've got a wedge and the wedge is getting a band mix, which is like, sound guys kind of like throwing it together so that you can all hear what you need to hear. It's so garbled when you're getting this front sound hitting you in the face and then you're just getting this wall of noise behind you, which is just like completely decimating everything else. It's like, I find it personally like almost impossible to monitor it. Because I'm like, all I'm getting is like low frequencies, which is just like, I don't know where I am anymore because I'm just getting hit by this wave of low noise. And then in the front, I'm getting a mix which isn't tailored to what I want because it's like, keys players are like, yeah, can I get like some more keys or, whoever you're playing with. So at least with ears, you can run a separate channel and just be like, yeah, like, can I just have bass or can I just have vocals or whatever it is? Because most people, like most, unless you're playing at festivals and stuff where they usually got pretty decent rig and like decent sound people in and stuff like that, like most local gigs or like smaller gigs, your sound guy might not be a dedicated sound guy and he's probably got limited channels in terms of what he can give you for monitoring. Because you're like, if you're miking up a drum kit, you've got 3 singers, you're miking up cabs and stuff like that, there's a limit to how many you can run really on most kind of in-house PAs and stuff like that. So yeah, just everyone should use in-ears. Keep your hearing nice, because when you're 40 or 50, you're not going to be able to hear anything.
Yeah. So I don't want to keep harping on this, but I think it's kind of worth harping on to a degree. I actually saw a very prominent musician who I feel like should know better, criticizing in-ears as being worse for your hearing because you're, quote, blasting it right into your ears instead of having it be like outside and around. I'm like, I understand what you are saying, but I think that means you have your in-ears too loud.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be, quote unquote, blasting into your ear. Like, you shouldn't have to do that. If your in-ears are sealed and you really shouldn't need to. I was really confused by that statement because it was like a big public thing. Like, in-ears are worse for your hearing, says famous guitarist. It wasn't, but it was a famous guitarist. Well, and I'm sure some people are like, I saw that video, but I'm not going to do any calling out right now because he's more successful than I am, and maybe he has a point that I'll admit I'm guilty of headline skimming here, so maybe there's more to it than I was giving credit.
I haven't even seen the headline, but I'm going to go on a whim and say I agree with you. Like, from personal experience, I've got like really tight fitting in-ears, so there's very little bleed, and I have my in-ears, like, they're so low in terms of the actual volume. Like, I've got so much headroom on the actual pack itself. I'm having it in, like, what would be the equivalent of, like, 2 out of 10 or something like that. I've, like, just gone on so I can hear things, but I'm not relying on them. Because you still, even with little bleed, you still get some stage sound. You know, you'll get sounds coming in. Like, you will hear the PA. It's just going to be, like, fairly quiet. So I barely have like any volume. I have enough volume that I can kind of like hear myself and hear where the vocals are and stuff like that. But you don't need to be absolutely ringing it through your ears. That's, you know, like it's not like you. Or certainly, I would hope you're not going to give yourself hearing damage if you've got it set at a reasonable volume. Certainly not more than, you know, what's a gig these days? It's got to be 120 decibels at least. Like and like that's from like like I'd imagine it's more. Like I've definitely played gigs that have been more than that. Sometimes at venues that we have to play to a sound limiter and stuff like that, and like it's really easy to clip them. So you know, it's got to be 120 decibels. If you're doing that regularly, at least 120 decibels, like it's gonna have an impact on your hearing. But you can't sustain that every night for, you know, 15, 16, 17 nights a month sometimes. You've probably got like 3 years of gigs before your hearing's probably irreparably damaged, I would say.
I mean, maybe sooner.
Yeah,
I mean, there's genetics that come in, you know, involved. Like my family is susceptible to hearing damage. So I've always been really conscious of it too. And I get it checked, you know, occasionally, because I remember when I was fairly young, I started to see what you were saying, like, oh, I'm losing a tiny bit of high end. And I'm like, sound is so important to me. I can't afford, I wasn't even using my ears to make a living at that time. I was just like, I love music and I love playing. Like, I mean, if you're going to go deaf because of genetics, you're going to go deaf because of genetics. Not anything you can really do about it. But I certainly don't need to speed along the process via abusing the situation all the time, 24/7. Don't get me wrong, I do crank my amps once in a while and, you know, let it blow me around out here, but it's pretty short duration and it's not very often. So far I haven't seen any drop since I first noticed that small drop initially. Everything's still on the right path, so I guess I'm doing something right with it. Protect your ears, folks. You only get 2.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm exactly the same as you. So when I started to notice, one of the things I started to notice, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like if I was going to like a bar or like a restaurant where there's quite a lot of like ambient noise in it, I was like really starting to struggle to hear like people talking and stuff. I would just get this kind of like really hot, like nasally muffle. And so that was another reason I was like, oh, I've got to kind of nip this in the bud again. This is when I was riding motorbikes a lot, but since then it's certainly not got any worse. I'd say it's probably got better. So I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, okay. You know, everyone make sure you keep your ears nice, because, you know, if you want to enjoy playing or listen to music when you're 55, 65, 70, now is the time to take proactive steps, keeping it good.
Yep. Yeah, mine was a little different. I didn't actually notice anything in my day-to-day or playing or recording or anything. It was just when I'd had to do a test for work at my old job. And it was like, oh, you've got some high frequency loss in your right ear. Like, not bad, but it's there, you know? And it wasn't enough to like notice, but I'm like, hey, that freaked me out enough to be like, all right, well, let's try to put a cap on that as soon as possible. And so pretty diligent about using hearing protection in situations where maybe other people wouldn't. But yeah, that's a story for another day, I suppose. Wow, we've been going. look at this. We're already at that hour mark, and I still have to ask you the classic questions to wrap this podcast up.
Cool. Let's do it. Don't want to take too much of your time up.
Oh, no. It's your time I'm worried about. It's nighttime over there. I got all day. Firstly, before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to give you the chance to take the floor. You can plug anything you want to plug, shout out anybody you want to shout out, say hi to a long-lost relative, or anything else you want to do. The floor is yours.
I don't know if I've got too much to plug right now. I'm in the middle of recording 2 EPs, so I'm like, I think there's been a couple of tracks released off the first one, which is with a Finnish artist called Jaakko Pentele. So it's kind of like a neo-disco, jazz fusion-y kind of thing, which is a lot of fun. It's very funky. And then I'm still recording my band's first EP. I say band, we're a power duo, so it's me and my good friend Sam Arnold, who's a drummer, really good drummer. So we're doing kind of like a heavier EP, just to keep things different. I'm doing all the writing on bass 6, so the guitar, air quotes, parts are on bass 6, and then all the bass lines are on bass 6 as well. So I'm just using one instrument to do all the recording. And that's kind of like a bit more, I would say it's like really heavy shoegaze. So it's kind of like in the vein of bands like Loathe, some Deftones and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like we've got a couple of little bits left, and it's going to start coming out into the world, which I'm really, really looking forward to. So yeah, that's kind of all I've got to plug really. But obviously want to say massive thank you for having me. It's gone really quick. I didn't realise we just waffled on for over an hour.
That's perfect. Well, you're in luck. We still got Patreon to do, so we can do some more waffling here in a little bit. Cool. All right. Classic questions. Here we go. First one. What is your favorite boss pedal?
Favorite boss pedal? Probably Metal Zone. Classic.
All right. Solid choice. Yeah.
I think it's probably my first boss pedal I own.
The Metal Zone? Yeah, it's probably the first one I tried. Yeah, was a Metal Zone. I didn't own one for a while, but yeah, I think that was the first one I tried.
I would love one now.
A much misunderstood pedal, but I think more people are starting to grasp it these days.
I feel like it became a meme, didn't it? So then, like, it became this thing of like, oh, it's like Line 6 Spiders on Insane Mode. It was like, oh, Line 6 Spider on Insane Mode. But like, I remember getting it and being like, in my mind, I was dying by Daryl at that point. I was like, I've made it.
Yeah.
Like, and it gave me everything that I needed as like a 13-year-old at that point. I was just like, oh, cool. I can tune to like, drop C sharp and stuff now, or whatever it is, C sharp. And now I can chug. Like, life complete.
Oh man. You knew about down tuning at 13. I was still confused. I didn't understand how people were getting those sounds. I was like, what is that? Is that a bass? What am I hearing? I didn't know. I had no idea what it was.
So me and my friend Chris, shout out Chris Cadusa. So when we were in school, we were both like, it was like a really friendly, competitive vibe where like it's like, that era of like when you're like discovering bands. So you'd be like, oh, like, have you heard Laid to Rest by Lamb of God? And then I would go home and I would like furiously learn it, so that I could go to school the next day and be like, look what I can do, like do like pinched harmonics and stuff. And he'd be like, fuck. And then like he'd go like, sorry, I swore, I don't know if it's so. And then he'd go to like his house, and then he'd be like, I've learned this like Trivium riff, and like it was just like every day one of us was learning a riff. So yeah, it was like the best time because like we discovered so many bands, and it was like LimeWire era as well. So like you'd hear a band that you thought was Trivium, and it was like some really random like local band and stuff. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So yeah, we were all into like Lamb of God and like Pantera and like, Bullets My Valentine, like when we were like 13. So like that's how like we learned like down tuning, and like I remember like the day we discovered drop D, we were like, oh my god, like this is like a seminal moment in our lives. The string goes,
oh totally, oh yeah, I remember my friend was like, look at this. You can play power chords with one finger. I was like, my life's over. Nothing matters anymore. This is all that I care about is playing power chords with one finger.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I still to this day love drop D. Like, if someone like handed me a guitar and I'm like,
love it.
I've done like the normal E standard, like Smith's riffs and stuff or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, now it's time to play. And I'm like, we're just going to play Lamb of God for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I still like whenever I play baritone a lot, baritone 6-string. Usually my Grez Mendocino. I love that thing, and I love it for heavy music, which is not normally what what those things are used for. It's what I use it for. Yeah, and then drop A on that. Oh, it's so thick and so good. I love it.
I've got Joe's.
Love it.
I've got Joe's Mendocino Bass 6 at the moment. It's
very
good.
Nice.
It's very good. It's very Hofner-y, actually.
Yes. Yeah, it is kind of, but it's got its own thing going on.
100%.
Yeah, I love Grez guitars.
Yeah,
Big fan.
same. Like that one, it's the first one I've tried. So like he just kind of like let me borrow it, and it's so good. Like everything about it is good. It weighs as much as like a packet of crisps. It's like beautifully finished. Everything just feels really well built on it, and then it sounds gorgeous as well. His is very niche. His is very Joe, where he's got a single Charlie Christian in the neck and then nothing else. So his is very specific. But that being said, it was a great choice because it's got that like notched tone pot on it. So it's got like different filtering depending on where the knob is. So you can actually get, to say it's a short scale bass with only a neck pickup, like on the bottom of the neck, it actually will brighten up quite well. And especially if you play like, kind of hand positioning back near the bridge a little bit. But it's a beautiful, beautiful bass 6. It's very, very cool.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we got the final question, and we'll wrap this section up and see what we can get into over on Patreon. So here we go. Final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, okay. Sourdough, stone wood fired, like stone pizza oven for like 90 seconds. Bit of tomato, like thin kind of like tomato sauce base, anchovies, capers, maybe some like prosciutto ham. And then that's probably it. That's what I would make. And then just like literally a tiny little bit of like mozzarella, like in like just like like dotted around, so it like melts, but it's like discs of it dot, not too much. That is my ultimate pizza. I mean, like I love pizza, so I will eat. It's like that adage, isn't it? Like there's no such thing as bad pizza. There's just some pizzas are way better than others. But like I will eat pizza until the cows come home. But that would be what I would make if I had a pizza in front of me right now.
Well, if you ever make it to Portland, I've got a spot to take you to. 2 spots. Well, there's like 20 really good pizza spots. But with what you just said, there's a specific spot called the Turning Peel. And I got to take you there. You will love it. It's amazing. Sourdough. It's so good. You just have to look up their Instagram. That's all you got to do. Just look at it, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. I understand. That's what I need.
It might be an expensive pizza.
It's so good.
Flying to Portland, but if I
it's worth it.
If I make loads of gigging money this summer, or what's left of this summer, I'm there.
All right, sounds good, man. You got 2 weeks.
I can do this.
Or whatever it is.
maybe you can put a piece, put a slice in your pocket and bring it to Nam. And if I make it to Nam, I'll have like 6-month-old pocket pizza.
I could probably, if you're coming to Nam, I could probably figure out like a way to engineer you to have that pizza. The problem is it'll be like not nearly as good as. Yeah. But yeah, we'll figure it out one of these days.
Yes, sounds real good to me.
All right, everybody. For Matt, this is Blake, and as always, folks, gotta be careful there. As always, folks, good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Please follow Matt on the socials. Check out his work. He's very, very talented, and he's very, very cool, and he deserves all the attention in the world. And if you'd like to hear more with Matt and help keep this show on the interwebs, you can go to Patreon, where for $5 a month, you not only get access to the ad-free feed of this podcast, you also get access to the bonus episodes that drop every week. And this one with Matt is no exception. We get into dad life. We get into some terrestrial. My hillbilly side just like popped out involuntarily there. Wow, that was weird. We get into some ET territory on this one, of course, and just general life stuff. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. So go over to Patreon and please support if you can. I'd really appreciate it. And whether you can or can't, the best thing you can do for this show is share it with a friend, share it with somebody. That means the world to me, so please continue doing that. That is why this show still exists and why it's been around, well, about a decade now. So thank you all for that. I appreciate you very much, and I will talk to you on the internet very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.